In a town where silence felt heavier than truth, Evan Hayes marched into basic training, believing the Army might earn him the love his father never gave. Master Sergeant Raymond Hayes carried scars from a deployment. He never spoke about scars that built the wall between them. As training pushed Evan to his limits, memories of cold dinners and unspoken expectations clawed at him. A sudden daytime drill shattered his composure and exposed the fear he didn't know he carried. Just when he finally began to find strength, a message from home threatened to break him all over again. Evan Hayes had always imagined leaving Ridgefield, Colorado, would feel like a kind of freedom, like stepping out from under a cloud that had followed him since childhood. But as the bus carrying him and 20 other recruits thundered down the long stretch of highway toward Fort Carson, he felt only the weight of everything he'd failed to fix. The afternoon sun was bright over the fields, yet it failed to warm the cold coil of regret sitting in his chest. He replayed their final morning on an endless loop. Raymond Hayes, his father, rigid posture, hands tucked in his jacket pockets, stood beside the old pickup, staring as though trying not to look at his own son. No hug, no "I'm proud of you," just a nod so small it could have been a twitch. Evan had swallowed the disappointment like he always did, climbed into the recruiter's van, and pretended he didn't care. Fort Carson welcomed him with shouting voices, pounding boots, and a sun so sharp it felt like judgment. Training was an unforgiving storm. Orders barked, errors punished, bodies breaking and rebuilding day after day. Evan pushed harder than anyone, fueled not by ambition, but by the hollow ache of wanting to be enough for someone who rarely showed emotion. At night, when the barracks fell silent, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying moments he wished he could rewrite, dinners eaten in silence, basketball games his father missed, birthdays filled with polite but distant smiles, and always, behind those memories, the sound of Raymond's nightmares, the muffled cries he thought no one heard. The mornings he emerged pale and hollow-eyed without explaining why. Evan had never asked. He had never dared. One particularly cold morning, during marksmanship training, the tremor in Evan's hands betrayed him. He fumbled the magazine, his pulse quickening in a way he couldn't control. Sergeant Dawson's eyes narrowed. "Hayes, you here to shoot or you here to sightsee?" A few recruits snickered. Evan clenched his jaw. He tried to remember his father's voice teaching him to steady a rifle on their first and only hunting trip. Control your breathing, control your mind. But his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The shot he finally fired missed wide, embarrassingly wide. That night, frustration gnawed at him. He sat on his bunk with his head in his hands, whispering, "Get it together." But discipline was a thin shield against the storm inside him. Days bled into each other until the surprise drill came without warning. It was midday, sun blazing over the training grounds, when the alarm shrieked across the base. Tires screeched as armored transports rolled in. Drill sergeants yelled over one another. Recruits scrambled for gear, stumbling into formation. Dust clouded the air. Evan froze for a fraction too long. The simulated gunfire cracked through the field, and something inside him lurched, an echo of a memory he didn't own, but had lived beside for years. His father's nightmares, his father's trembling hands, his father's silence. Suddenly, Evan wasn't on the training field anymore. He was 13 again, standing in the hallway at 2 a.m., listening to Raymond gasp for air on the kitchen floor. "Hayes!" Dawson's shout ripped him back. "Move!" Evan stumbled through the drill, every sound too loud, every breath too sharp. When it ended, sweat soaked his uniform. Dread soaked his pride. He braced for humiliation, but that night Dawson approached quietly. "You look like a man carrying 2 rucksacks," he said. "You're not the first to get overwhelmed." Evan blinked. Encouragement wasn't something he heard often. "I'm trying, Sergeant. I know." A pause. "Whatever you're fighting, keep fighting. People back home notice more than you think." The words pierced deeper than criticism ever could. Something small warmed inside him, fragile hope, trembling but real. From that night forward, something shifted. During marches, Evan found his rhythm. During shooting drills, he steadied his breath. Even his bunkmate Luis noticed. "Dude," he said one afternoon, "you're turning into a machine." Evan shrugged, masking the pride rising in him like dawn. For the first time, he felt like he could become someone worthy, someone Raymond might finally acknowledge. Then everything changed. It was a rare sliver of free time. The sun hung high over the barracks, wrapping the world in gentle warmth. Evan sat on the steps, letting the quiet soothe him, when a staff sergeant approached with a sealed envelope. Hayes, urgent. From home. Evan's heartbeat faltered. He tore the envelope open, recognizing his mother's handwriting instantly thin. Shaky strokes that told him something was wrong before he even read the words. Evan, call me as soon as you can. It's about your father. The world tilted, the sunlight suddenly to bright, to hot. He read the line again, hoping he'd misunderstood. But the message stayed the same, cold, trembling, heavy with things unspoken. His breath came uneven. His fingers tightened around the paper. A lifetime of unanswered questions surged through him, every silence, every withdrawn look. Every night his father sat alone, staring into nothing. Something had happened. Something big. He stood slowly, heart pounding against his ribs, knowing with chilling certainty that whatever waited for him back home would change everything he thought he knew. And as a sharp wind swept across the training field, Evan felt destiny shifting beneath his feet, pulling him toward a truth he was no longer certain he wanted to face. Evan stepped off the military transport van with a heart pounding so hard it felt like it might bruise his ribs. Nothing about the bright Colorado morning matched the heaviness inside him. Birds sang, leaves rustled. The sun warmed the roads, but every step toward his family's house felt like walking deeper into a storm. Emergency leave. His mother's shaky voice. His father's name wrapped in fear. None of it made sense, and yet all of it did. Raymond Hayes had spent years pretending he was unbreakable. Maybe the truth was finally catching up to him. The house appeared at the end of the road, small and unchanged, yet charged with a tension that prickled Evan's skin. His mother stood on the porch, wringing a dish towel in her hands. She tried to smile, but her eyes were swollen. Evan, she managed. What happened? He asked, voice raw. She hesitated. Your father's been having episodes again, worse than before. He collapsed 2 nights ago. The VA finally forced him into evaluation, but he refused treatment. He kept asking for you. The words twisted something inside him. Raymond Hayes didn't ask for anyone, not even his own family. Where is he now? In the garage. He won't come inside. Evan approached the garage slowly, pushing the door open with the same caution he'd use entering a dangerous room. Sunlight spilled across the concrete floor, revealing tools scattered everywhere. As if thrown during a moment of rage or panic. Raymond sat on a stool, elbows on his knees, staring at the ground. He looked older, shoulders caved inward, breath shallow, hands trembling despite being clasped tightly together. Dad, Evan whispered. Raymond lifted his head. His eyes were red, but not from tears, more like he hadn't slept in days. You came. You asked for me. A crack rippled through the silence. Raymond tried to straighten his posture, the old soldier reflex still alive somewhere under the exhaustion. I didn't want you to see me like this. You're my father, Evan said. I should have seen you like this a long time ago. Raymond's jaw tightened. There are things you don't understand. Then help me understand. Raymond looked away. For a long moment, there was only the distant hum of a passing car. Then he spoke, voice low and rough. It happened on my last deployment. Something I never told anyone, not your mother, not command. His hands shook harder. We walked into an ambush. I was squad leader. My call put my men in that valley. 2 didn't come home. And he paused, breath cracking. I came back alive. I never forgave myself for that. Evan felt the world tilt. He had always imagined his father hard, stern, unreachable, but guilt like that didn't come from coldness. It came from a wound deep enough to bleed for decades. Dad, he said quietly, survivor's guilt isn't your fault. Raymond snapped, voice sharp as glass. You think saying that fixes what I did? It wasn't your fault, Evan repeated, louder this time. Raymond stood abruptly, pacing. You joined the army to prove something. To me, to yourself. But you don't know who I really am. I know you're hurting. You know nothing. Raymond shot back. You see the soldier. You don't see the coward. Evan's breath hitched. Is that what you think you are? It's what I've always been. The words landed like a hammer. The father Evan spent his life trying to impress wasn't proud or distant or angry. He was broken, and he'd been hiding that brokenness behind discipline and silence. "Dad," Evan said, stepping forward, "you're not a coward. You're human." Raymond's voice trembled. "I left my men there. I still hear them calling. Every night. And the army gave me a medal for it." Evan reached for his father's arm. "You did what you could." Raymond pulled away. "Don't defend me. Don't you dare." The confrontation spilled out onto the porch. Evan's mother stood frozen by the door, as if afraid one wrong word might cause the entire house to crack. "Why didn't you tell me?" Evan demanded. "All these years, because you wanted a hero." Raymond shot back. "And I couldn't be one. I wanted my father," Evan said, voice breaking. "Not the uniform, not the legacy. Just you." Raymond stared at him, the fight draining from his expression. For the first time, he looked fragile, human, small beneath the afternoon sun. "I thought I was protecting you," he whispered. "By pushing me away." Evan asked, "By keeping you from becoming like me." Their eyes locked, two soldiers standing on opposite sides of a lifetime of silence. And then a car pulled into the driveway, a black government SUV. Evan's mother gasped. Raymond's face drained of color. Two men stepped out, one in a clinician uniform, the other in plain clothes but clearly federal. The air shifted, heavy and electric. "Master Sergeant Raymond Hayes?" The plainclothes officer called out. "We need to speak with you regarding your deployment records." Raymond froze. "No, not now." Evan stepped in front of him. "What's going on?" The clinician spoke gently. "Your father's medical evaluation raised concerns. There are inconsistencies in his after-action report. We need him to come with us." Raymond shook his head. "I'm not going anywhere." Evan felt panic rise like a tidal wave. "Wait, he's not well. At least talk to me." "I'm sorry," the officer said. "This is mandatory," Raymond whispered. "Evan, don't fight this." But Evan wasn't listening. He positioned himself between them and his father, heart racing. The entire porch seemed to shrink around them, the sun too bright, the air too thin. "Give us time," Evan said. "Please," the officer sighed. "You have 5 minutes. The SUV door is shut." Waiting. Evan turned to his father. Raymond's eyes glistened not with fear, but with acceptance. "I knew this day would come," he murmured, "but I never wanted you to see it." "Dad," Raymond placed a trembling hand on his son's shoulder. "Whatever happens next, remember you're stronger than I ever was." Evan swallowed hard. "I'm strong because of you." Raymond's expression softened just for a moment. Then the officer stepped forward again. "Time's up." And as Raymond exhaled a final, shaking breath, Evan realized this was the moment that would change everything. Evan felt the world narrowing as choices he never imagined stood inches from him, demanding strength he wasn't sure he had. And in that blinding Colorado sunlight, Evan understood that the real battle was only just beginning.